Thank you very much, Minister Vallance. So I am the aforementioned Anne-Marie, co-chair of the Women in Tech Task Force at DSIT. I also am chair at the Institute for the Future of Work and CEO of STEMETS. And it's important which order, maybe or not, that I give those roles. I'm here to do a quick fireside chat to unpick some of what Minister Vallance has just said. The last time you were on one of our Institute stages, you did talk about equality. You had it there in your speech. Thank you very much for stepping in as well last minute to cover for Secretary of State, who I do co-chair the task force with. Equality is important. We currently have only 22% of those working in AI roles as women. This is bigger also than just representation. It's about how we shape the future of technology and of work. The Secretary of State is very clear on this isn't just about making technology as an industry work for women, but it's also about making tech itself work for all of society, which includes women. What would success look like to you in 5 or 10 years' time, not just for women in tech roles, but for the kind of economy and society that these roles help build?
Well, let me pick up on the point you made, which I really strongly agree with, which is this isn't just about representation. This is about how we make sure tech develops fast, effectively and well for society. And I think if it doesn't have appropriate diverse representation, we will not solve that problem. So this is about getting that right. Therefore, there's an urgent necessity to do it. You talked about the fact there are 22% of the people employed in AI-related industries are women. To get to parity at the current rate of progress would take 283 years. I mean, that is bonkers. We've got to do this fast. So if you ask me what this would look like, in 5 years, we must have made really, really significant progress towards this. And we need to make it not just for the opportunity for all the women who actually have got something to offer there, but for the industry itself and for the ability to get this to be a technology embedded in societal need, not being done to society. And so I think it's absolutely crucial. It's why it's so important to get the sorts of things set up that you're doing with the Secretary of State. And I think it's worth saying, as part of that, we need to make sure we've got the right support systems in place, because you can bet your life there are plenty of support systems for some of the men in that system. You know, there are mentors, there are people bringing people on, so we need to get that right. We need to get the environment right, not just for the entry, but also for the growth inside the industry. And we need to get things like the financial flows right, because we know that lots of venture-backed funding goes absolutely disproportionately to males. So we need to just try and get all of those things right and move fast on it.
Yes, we need to move as fast maybe as we are adopting the AI, perhaps. And I think, you know, to quote, I can see Karen there looking at me, reminding me that 2p in every pound is what we have at the moment, venture-backed funding, at least going to women-led businesses. Second question, you mentioned there Barnsley, that we're holding up as an example of what happens when things go right, when this opportunity is evenly distributed, but of course benefits are patchy. When we think about the cross-economy, cross-society impacts, the Institute's Good Work Monitor shows that access to good work is still very uneven, and that the gap between the top and the bottom performing areas is becoming much more pronounced. So you mentioned a couple of things that you're already working on. What do you think government and firms and regional authorities, because they're a big part of this picture as well, need to do to make sure that adopting AI doesn't further entrench existing geographic inequalities, but instead helps build stronger regional innovation ecosystems and better jobs across the whole country?
Yeah, and again, we've got to get that right. Just before we go on to that, I'll go back to your point about venture capital. Worth just saying that 48% of all venture capital in Europe is coming to the UK at the moment. I mean, something's working, so that's good. We need to get the equality of this right now. Well, there are a series of schemes that are already in place, which I think we need to push. Local Get Britain Working in all areas, get that across the whole of the UK. There are 17 programmes on economic inactivity and youth guarantees, trailblazer programmes, which are being led by mayoral strategic authorities, and Connect to Work schemes to try and get people with disabilities or other significant barriers to work back in. I think those schemes need to happen. But fundamentally, yes, there is a national need to get this right, but there needs to be this local pull and this local ability to implement it. And I think that's where local leaders working together can learn from each other and make this happen. It's where examples like Barnsley we can look at and say, well, what was it that made that possible? I mean, it was in a national statement, we're going to do it, so that's helpful, but then it's local leadership, local businesses leading in, local colleges, schools and others leading in, and I think that's what we now need to make sure happens, and happens quickly.
And I think we also need to make sure we're enabling that local work. I mean, from the Good Work Monitor, one of the regions that we know is incredibly important but has ended up being out of scope because of the kind of quality of data that's available is Northern Ireland. And so I think there's also quite a few things structurally we need to do to ensure that that local work can be
But I mean,
done well.
your point is absolutely right, that all new technologies run the risk of widening inequality. We cannot let that happen. It's really, really important. We don't, because at the end of it, if we do that, we're all the losers.
So this was supposed to be fast. So final question. You spoke about risks and jobs being one of those big three risks that you are kind of worried about. We need to ensure that we are adopting AI responsibly. And our strapline at the Institute is transforming working lives for good, which is why we're all here today, presume. Now, our recent accent research with firms suggests that AI adoption is a people challenge, not a technical one that we heard very clearly actually in our opening panel. And I'm sure many folks are going to repeat that again throughout today. There's been a focus, which we've now met, on addressing AI adoption in firms, but less really on advocating for proper work redesign and proper work redesign processes that centre people's experiences. We have this notion of human-centred at the Institute, and research tells us it leads to better outcomes. Can you tell us more about how DSIT plans to make good work design a core part of AI adoption?
Yeah, and I gave you that example from medicine, where I think there's something about saying what your end point is you want to achieve, rather than, because the end point isn't the rate of adoption of AI. The end point is how that actually changes what you're trying to achieve in that job. And I think it's quite important to define that and understand that. And I think the future of work unit, I think, is a good step forward, because it is people thinking about nothing but that and trying to make sure that's embedded in policy decision making and policy thoughts. And this sort of conference is going to be important to feed into that. So it's really important to get the output of that into that unit. If anyone knew the answer to this, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So it's not easy. It's also an international question, and I'm very pleased that there have been significant international efforts. There was a big conference, a Wilton Park conference, to try and bring people together internationally to look at this and to start to define what the things are we need to see. So I think we need to accept we don't know the answer. We need to work very hard to try and get those answers. We need to monitor very carefully to make sure we're not making mistakes. We need to make this about workflows, systems, the human side of it. And I can tell you, because when I came in to my role as minister in July 2024, one of the first things I said in my private office was, let's be the office that uses AI to try and get as much done as we can. And it has been unbelievably difficult. So, it has been unbelievably difficult to get that going. I've got a great person working on it. He's done some fantastic technical things, but the challenge of then embedding that properly in the way the place works has given me a painful first-hand experience of what this really looks like. And I think that's what we need to also face up to, the reality of this. It is not an easy thing to do, changing the way that we think about work, even if you can see the obvious benefits of it. And we should not underestimate how difficult this is going to be, but none of that is a reason not to get on with it fast.
I think I know an institute that can help you out with that. Thank you very much, Minister. We are going to head into our next panel if you'd like to join me in thanking Minister Patrick Vallance.